invited tonight. And I'll just say really, really briefly that I think what we're going to do, I think for a format that'll probably work for this caliber of people, is that normally I do presentations 3 times a week for our team which is global now. I think we're in about 13 different countries now on the team. And we do those presentations 3 times a week. I'm going to do something slightly different tonight. I'm going to use the same initial PowerPoint, but I know some of you have already seen an overview. Some of you may not. Some of you, however, you know enough about crypto or you know enough about networking that we don't need to spend maybe the same level of time of salesmanship, if you will, on some of the slides. And I want to get to some of the key slides that I think will really help you with your evaluation. And then after that, because this is leaders, if you want to, Mr. Jerome, we can open it up for like a leadership Q&A, and we can just kind of
Sure.
get down to it and talk a little about strategy. Does that work?
Yes, sir. Definitely.
All right, good stuff. So let me share my screen here real quick, and that should allow us to kind of get started. If my computer wants to cooperate. There you go. All right, cool. And I'll minimize that. All right, guys, good stuff. So I'm not going to talk about a disclaimer again. It's just this just kind of leadership here. You guys all get it. We're all adults here. We're going to all make our own decisions. But I kind of want to get to a little of what Cryptex is, and they are this DeFi staking protocol. They've done something very unique, which is where, as most staking platforms will say, hey, man, you go put up 20 grand and you can, and we'll pay you this amount per day or per week or per month or whatever their thing is. Cryptex has created a way for you to be able to be paid off of staking dollars, where the initial risk capital is not your own. And I'm going to explain that because I think that's the biggest magic here with Cryptex. They've got these relationships with banks, insurance companies, individual account holders like us. They have something called a DeFi hybrid contract, which we'll explain in a moment. But the thing I want everyone to understand most importantly is that they're not new. They've got over 800,000 account holders across the globe, and they've been around since 2016. So they launched in 2016. They came online in 2018. So they've had a web presence since then. But the point is, they've been around long enough to pay out on lots and lots of these contracts. So they've got a huge track record built up. We'll show you that when we show you our research. And they are going strong, man. They're showing really no sign of slowing down. Probably everybody here understands staking, but just in case you don't, the basic understanding of staking is that it's when you keep your crypto assets locked for a period of time so you can generate passive income, in this case, daily income. This stabilizes the network and they give us rewards, in this case, daily rewards. And it's very similar to getting a CD or a certificate of deposit from your bank. The longer you let the bank hold your money, the higher the interest rate they're going to pay you because they know that they can profit off your money time and time again. Now, what Cryptex has is this 4-part profit partnership. We all have our part. We all get the profit because of this part. For your part, you're simply going to start a free account. You're only going to give your email address and your password. I want to make it clear. They don't care about your job history. They don't care about your name even. They don't care about your credit history, any of those things. And I'll show you why here in a second. So they just need an email that you plan on having access to for the next several years, as well as a password that'll start your account. And then you're going to pay a $100 processing fee, or $100 processing fees, depending on how many of these DeFi staking contracts that you want. The length of the contract terms before they mature and terminate is 2, 3, 5, or 7 years. You get to pick which ones you want. They've had a maximum 80 contracts now since we've been involved, but they just added these 2-year contracts. They've allowed people to pierce that veil and get an additional 50 contracts if they so choose. We'll go through that here in a second. The banks, this is where kind of the magic starts to happen, right? For every single DeFi contract that you get, a bank is going to make a loan directly to the contract on your behalf. So you pay a $100 processing fee, but instead of you then putting up 20 grand, 30 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand, the banks are going to do it for you. So if you get a 2 or 3 year contract term, they'll put up 30,240 for you. If you get a 5 or 7 year contract term, they'll put up $43,000 to 43,200 for you. They do this because they're going to get paid back out of the profits that you're earning on a daily basis. The banks will get paid back anywhere from 5.5 to 6.75% every single year. And then at the end of the staking term, 2, 3, 5, or 7 years, the bank gets back their initial loan capital before you or I get to touch anything. So that's a big deal because they know you can't touch the money in the beginning. So it's not like you're going to run off to Vegas with it. They know they're going to be paid every single year their interest from a smart contract, and they know that at the end of the term, before you get to touch the profits, they get their money back. So that works for the banks. The final concern that a bank would have is what happens if Cryptex goes down. If something happens to the staking contract. So insurance companies step in and they insure the staking wallet against catastrophic loss or default. They do that because they're going to get paid monthly premiums, again, directly by the smart contract of $210 per month if it's a 2 or 3 year contract, or $300 per month if it's a 5 or 7 year contract for every single contract that you have. They get it right as rain every single month on the monthly anniversary date, if you will, when you acquire the contracts, and it's done automatically again by the smart contract. So you and I don't have to go back in our pockets. This removes all the risk from the bank. And again, to drive it home, the smart contract does all the hard work. They do all the micro compounding, which is about 0.1 to 0.3% per day. They pay the bank its annual interest on the exact anniversary date, as well as the initial capital back on the termination date of the contract. They pay the insurance company every single month, month after month after month, for every single contract that you have. And once everybody else is paid, the remaining profits come to us. Now, when you get started with Cryptex, you're going to have some options. You can get a 2-year contract. You can get a 2-year pack, right? The packs are interesting because what they say is if you're willing to spend $1,000 instead of $100 per contract, you're willing to spend $1,000 at once, they'll give you 5 bonus contracts. So you can get 15 2-year contracts for the price of 10. You can get an individual 3-year contract. You can get 15 3-year contracts for the price of 10. I'll show you what this is all worth here in a second. Or you can get an individual 5-year contract or an individual 7-year contract. So they do it all in months, but 24 months is 2 years, 36 months is 3 years, et cetera, et cetera. They do it in months, but it's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and 7 years. Now, the way that works out for us from a profit standpoint, if you get a 2-year contract, you pay the same $100 processing fee no matter what term you pick. But for the 2 years, the bank makes a $30,000 and $30,240 loan. They start micro compounding. It takes about 48 hours, and they'll start micro compounding every single day. And after the insurance company is paid over 2 years, the bank is paid their annual interest over 2 years, and the bank gets their $30,240 back at the end. What's left over for you and your family is a little over $22,000. So a lot of people will say, "Man, I paid $100," and they somehow took that and built it up to $22,000 over 2 years. That's not true. The reality is your only risk was $100, which is what went into the processing fee, but they really based the staking profits off of a $30,240 start point. And when it was all said and done and everybody got paid back, you had $22,000 left over. 3-year contract, same loan to start, same processing fee for you, but 35 grand left over for you after 3 years. 5-year contract, the loan is about 50% higher. It's a $43,000 loan instead of a $30,000 loan. And obviously it's 2 years longer. 471 grand in profit left over for you and your family after everybody gets paid. And with the 7-year contract, again, same loan now, 43,200, much longer staking period though. And it's absolutely ridiculous. What's left over there is 1.5 million after everybody else has been paid off. So 22, 35, 471 are 1.5 million. That's the profits. And then based off of how you want to develop your strategy, I'll show you a couple here in a moment. That is what you're looking at in terms of returns after 2, 3, 5, or 7 years per contract. Now, this is what it looks like in your back office. This is an example. Somebody let us take a snapshot there. They paid $100 processing fee. They picked a 3-year loan right away. They saw 30,240 get entered into the staking pool from a bank on their behalf. After about 24 to 48 hours, they started earning their staking profits daily. This is about 3 days in. But 184.95 that they had earned profit from staking, and then you see they add that to the amount. So every single day when you're earning your profits, you're compounding because you're earning profits off of profits now. That's why the numbers get so much larger once you go from 3 years to 5 years, 5 years to 7 years, because the numbers really start to stack up for you. I always like to call it the elephants in the room. I don't like to do presentations and pretend like I don't know what people are thinking. And I know the first time I saw this and I saw the returns, I said, that's not possible. That's kind of unreal. So I ask, I do it right in the presentation. The first thing I did when I saw this and I talked to my business partners about it is we said, well, how do we know it's real? Let's go do some research. Let's kind of really dig in and see what's out there. So we did it on two different fronts. Number one, we knew Cryptex had been around for 9 years. So therefore, if you've been around for 9 years and at that time there were no 2-year contracts, there was just 3, 5, and 7. So hey, there had to be a lot of people that have been paid out. So let's actually see what's happened for those people. So we found some people that were willing to share their stuff. I will tell you, it is not easy to find people willing to share their stuff, because what we're talking about are people who have been paid hundreds of thousands and in some case millions and millions of dollars in Bitcoin completely anonymously, and now we're asking them to expose themselves. Not exactly the first thing on their mind. These guys are able to kind of get all this Bitcoin, completely live off the grid, and we're saying, hey, can we record you? Can we? And they're basically telling us to go jump off of a bridge. But here's some of the people that did share with us. So this person showed us. They got started in Cryptex basically in 2020. So now they're showing us what they were, what their withdrawals were like as their contracts started closing out at the top of 2023. So January 10th, 2023, $98,800. These are all withdrawals out of Cryptex's wallet. On January 11th, so just one day later, they took out 89,487. 2 months later, on March 15th, when they had their next round of contracts they had purchased, they took out $100,000 2 months later. 3 days afterwards, another 100,000. 2 days afterwards, 112 grand, and then one day after that, 100,580. Add it all up, you're talking more money than most people making 5 to 10 years working their full-time job. And this is just because this is not a person who was a superstar builder or network marketer or influencer or anything. Just somebody who 3 years earlier made a decision that this made sense to them, and they paid some $100 processing fees, and now they've made enough money to basically set their family up for some real run. And they had more contracts than this. This is just the contracts they had close out early on in 2023. Now, another person that we found, a gentleman by the name of Mo. When the guy I'm working with, Gary, actually met Mo. Mo was about 2 weeks away from cashing out a couple of contracts that he had gotten 3 years earlier. So he agreed to actually film the entire process, to document it, so people could actually see all the different aspects of what this looked like. So the first thing he showed was his back office. And in his back office, you could see when he had gotten these contracts, it was back in 2020 as well. They were actually running a buy one, get one free for the 3-year contracts. The other thing that's interesting back then is the 3-year contracts, they were still the banks. They had a bank at that point that was providing loans for $43,200 for the 3-year contracts as well. That is no longer the case today. So today we're just dealing with $30,000, $30,240 for the 3-year loans. But back then it was $43,200 for those as well. He had 2 of those. He got those contracts on November 20th of 2020. And then they terminated exactly on November 21st of 2023. So what happens is you can see all this detail for every contract that you get, including the exact termination date. On that exact date, the smart contract will signal an email to be sent to you, to the email that you have registered on that exact date, letting you know that your contract is terminated. So this is the email he got from Cryptex support, and it basically says, "Hey Mo, come get your dough." It shows him for a DeFi hybrid contract. He blacked out a lot of this stuff. He was kind of nervous about the fact that we were going to show this to the world. So he didn't, he kind of blacked out some of his personal contract information. That's fine. We can see the relevant data though. For DeFi hybrid contract, this is the contract address. It shows that it terminated 11/21/2023, and then this DeFi 36 contract was offered as a buy one. It's basically showing as buy one get one free. He got 2 contracts. After that 3 years, because those contracts again, that amount was larger, 43,200. He had 501 grand and change in the wallet. They had some in-user fees they used to pay the back end of the compensation plan, so 485 left over. And then they do a loan reversal is what they call it. Remember, the bank gets back all their money before we can touch anything. So the bank could actually put $86,400, which is 2 loans of 43,200 for the buy one get one free into the staking pool. They got all their 86,400 back, and what's left over for him, 398, 745, 68. Okay, so 398, 745, 68. So then he shows us his back office, and you can see that what Cryptex does is as soon as they're sending you that email, at the same time they're sending you that email, they're making a deposit into your back office for that exact amount. So they were basically telling them where his $398,000 deposit came from. That was the purpose of the email, and letting them know, hey, we've deposited this money for these contracts. Please make arrangements to withdraw the money off of the Cryptex system at your convenience. So then he simply goes and hits withdraw, and it goes through the withdrawal process. And what he ends up with, there's about a 4% withdrawal fee. What he ended up with was 10.597 Bitcoin. This is his wallet off the system. This is his actual cell phone, and he's showing his actual non-custodial wallet. And the amount he actually ended up getting was $388,653.68 of Bitcoin, which is 10.597 Bitcoin. That's the value back in November of 2023. As you guys probably all know, I'm sure you guys are all very up on today's price of Bitcoin, but today, here about a year and a half later, that would have been well over $1 million. So I don't know if he kept it or not kept it, or spent some of it and kept some of it, whatever, not my business. But the point is, I always like to make it clear to people to remember, we're not being paid in dollars and cents. We're being paid in Bitcoin, which is an appreciable asset. So again, being paid in Bitcoin is actually better than being paid in cash. You can turn it into cash if you want to. The other side of that, though, was that he also, we knew that this was on the blockchain. So that was a big deal for us, because when you have a company that's paying on the blockchain and they send you your deposits, your withdrawals through the blockchain, one of the greatest things about that is you can go back and track back to the payment wallets, and you can see what they're actually doing. So a lot of people will talk about what they're doing. A lot of companies, I mean, you guys have probably all been involved in companies before. I know I have. We're going to be the next billion-dollar company, and we're going to be a billion-dollar company. And billion-dollar company means they're going to do $1 billion in sales. It's very few companies that pay out billion or billions of dollars in commissions. But we were able to track back to Cryptex payment wallets. We've probably found about 6 or 7 of them by now. But at the time, here's a couple that we were looking at back in May. Here's the first one. This is what's called a clearinghouse wallet, which means Cryptex only puts commissions in here so that they can be withdrawn, right? Whenever they have funds in their possession, those funds are actually active in staking pools or liquidity pools. That's how they derive their profit. But once you get to a point, you say, okay, Cryptex, give me my dough, then they're going to actually take it out of a staking pool, send it over to a clearinghouse wallet like this, and then you can withdraw that money right away. So here's one of their wallets we were able to track back to. As you guys can see, the wallet transacted 26,000 times, 26,530 times. But look at his number, 52 billion. $682,588,662. So again, I'm not, I don't know how many companies I've seen out there that have done $52 billion in sales. Here's a company that's paid out of one wallet over $52 billion in commissions. That blew me away. That literally blew me away. Maybe you've seen wallets that big before. I've never seen wallets that big before in my life. And in fact, I'm looking at a Bitcoin wallet, so I know this is real. It's not faked. That was something that was big for me as well. This is what it actually looked like. We did this back on this screenshot back on May 13th of 2025. So you can see the actual date there. All the red arrows are withdrawals to people like you and me. The green arrows is basically Cryptex sending the money in. So somebody basically said, I want to do a withdrawal. they're sending the money in from different sources, and then people are able to withdraw it. So here you have them sending some money in, and then this is a red arrow going out to someone for $6,950,000, 6.9 million bucks. Here's another red arrow for $451,000 on the 13th as well. Another red arrow on May 13th. $4.996 million. And another red arrow, this was on May 12th, so the day before, for $5,038,000. So again, we're talking about the smallest deposit, the smallest withdrawal here was 451 grand, which I've never gotten paid $451,000 in my life at once from anything, network marketing, traditional business, anything. Maybe you guys have. I know we got some ballers on the line. I'm just saying I have not. I'm being transparent about that. I've definitely never gotten paid millions of dollars in one payment for anything in my entire life. So, but this is the type of withdrawals that people, other account holders from Cryptex are making. The other wallet that we actually was given to us that we were able to go look at and verify. This wallet had 516 billion. Again, $500 billion, right? $241,580,691 go through it as a Cryptex payment wallet. So, just an insane amount of Bitcoin that has been paid out over the 9 years. I think this is probably about a 9-year-old wallet, but over the 9 years that Cryptex has been operational, they've been paying out billions and billions and billions of dollars. For those of you that are skeptical like us, where it's like, yeah, but how do we know it's not just $100 Ponzi scheme? Just simple math will tell you. They have a little over 800,000 members. We rounded up to 900,000. If you multiply that by the $100 processing fee, you come up with 90 million. And if you assume that every single person in the history of Cryptex, this is a stupid assumption, but let's just assume it anyway, every single one got a full 80 contracts. Everybody maxed out. That's still just 7.2. 90 million times 80 is $7.2 billion. I showed you two wallets. The smallest one had $52 billion paid out. How do you explain the $45 billion that's missing, right? The only explanation is that every one of these $100 bills is really being represented by a $30,000 loan, a $42,000, $43,000 loan, et cetera. And then it's actually compounding, and they actually are drawing in profits from staking and liquidity provision for large exchanges. I mean, that's the only way you can explain an extra $45 billion be paid out. You can't have a Ponzi that pays out more money than what actually comes in. That breaks even Ponzi math. So that's what let us know that there was some real business going on here to generate extreme profits, and that they were a profitable business here. With regards to the compensation plan, and again, I'm not going to do all the salesmanship. You guys are networkers. You know how comp plans work, but they've got 3 different pieces to it. They've got the front end, which is their 10-level deep unilevel, that is based off of the $100 processing fee. So it's 30% level 1, 5% level 2, et cetera, down through 10 levels. Because it's a $100 processing fee, it's easy. It's $30, $5, $5, $5, again, down through $3. We always do the example for brand new people who don't think they can refer a lot or recruit a lot. What if everybody just got 3 people? Most people believe they can find 3 people. And then even though on our team, we have this kind of go for 80 mentality, whether it's your first day, your first month, or your first year, go out and get 80 contracts so you can set up your family for financial, just financial retirement. But even if everybody only got 10, this is the kind of numbers that you would make in commissions, which as you can see, hundreds, then thousands, tens of thousands, 100,000, and a couple $1 million on the front end. And again, this is if you only got 3. I don't think probably anybody who's been invited to this call would only get 3. I made the joke with Mr. Jarman. That's like a bad Wednesday night, to recruit 3 people. I think we're probably dealing with much more substantial leadership than that. But again, even for the average person, if they just did 3 and made a couple $1 million through 10 levels, I'm sure they would be happy. This right here, and I'm going to show you some other math to show you some real world situation of what's been able to happen for me. This is the most ridiculous thing that I've ever seen, which is they don't just pay you on the front end. They will also pay you on the back end as the contracts begin to terminate and execute. So we did a 3 getting 3 model on the previous slide. And by the time you got down to your 5th level, you would have, with just 3 getting 3, 243 referrals. If everybody got 10 contracts, 2,400 contracts, you made 4% on the front end, but that's 4% of $100. So that's $4 each. So $9,720 in commissions. But what they're also going to do is on the back end, which means when the contracts terminate, they're going to give you commissions through 20 levels. 20 levels of referrals throughout your entire team based off of the terminated value of the contract. What does that mean? It means level 5, you're also going to earn 4%. But now it's not 4% of $100. It's 4%. If we were doing 3-year contracts and they're paying out 35 grand each, it's 4% of 35,000. So you'll make $1,400 on the back end for each one of these contracts. You made $4 on the front end, but you'll make $1,400 on the back end for each and every contract. So in this case, that's about $3.4 million. Now, if you think back to the, you look at the blockchain and you're seeing billions of dollars going out, but you remember just the specific days that we showed you, May 12th, May 13th, and you're seeing $6 million go out, $5 million go out, $4.9 million go out. All of a sudden, it kind of makes sense a little bit. It's not just about somebody's individual contracts closing out. In all likelihood, that's team builders. That's people who went out and built up these teams, got aggressive, like we're getting, like we've been aggressive. They built up these big teams, and now they're having these huge payouts as their team contracts start to terminate on the other end. And remember, this number is just based off of 3-year contracts. A 5-year contract is 471 grand. A 7-year contract is 1.5 million. So you start thinking about, earning percentages of that. And again, this is just 4%. Anybody frontline to you earn 8%. So you can start to kind of play with that math and think about where that's going. Final part of the compensation plan I'll share really quickly is just the leadership bonus for people like the people that are on this call that, either you're a superstar networker or you have a lot of sphere of influence. You are maybe a social media personality. A lot of people will follow you based off of your recommendations. If you can go out and refer 100 people directly, and remember, that's not 100 necessary team builders or networkers or recruiters. It could be, 80 people who just want to get a membership or memberships for them and their family who are just essentially customers, and maybe just 20 people who want to build a team, right? But if you can get 100 people that get one membership each, that is the qualification there. And then the second part of the qualification is have 1,000 contracts within your entire team. So it took me 29 days to get 1,000 contracts on my team, to give you guys an example. And keep in mind, during that 29 days, the stuff you're looking at right now, the presentation, all this, I had to build all this. This did not exist. So I had to build presentations, build training platforms, work on a guy with funnel systems. And in between all that, still got 1,000 people on my team in 29 days. I say all that to say that I have no doubt that the people, I know Mr. Jarman can, I saw some of the other names, and I have no doubt that every single one of you could probably double my number in 29 days if you wanted to, right? Because we already got all this infrastructure now. You can just plug people in. You don't have to worry about creating this stuff. But when you do that, when you get 100 frontline and 1,000 contracts on your team throughout your entire team, you will be considered leadership bonus qualified. They're going to give you a $5,000 bonus right away, $5,000 worth of Bitcoin. So that's pretty sweet. But then every month after that, they will look at your team and they will zero in on your first 2 levels. And if on those first 2 levels you have 100 contracts coming on your first 2 levels. Now, I want to specify here. It's not 100 people. It could be the same amount of people, but just 100 contracts. So you could have the same 100 people who a month ago got 1 contract, and this month they each get another 1 or 2 contracts. So that's 100 or more contracts. They will actually give you a $5 bonus that will go through infinity. So not just your first 10 levels. Now you pierce those 10 levels. You can go down to 100 levels deep, 500 levels deep. It doesn't matter where contracts come in. You're going to make at least $5 off of those contracts for the entire month. And they're going to do that every single month. As an example, if you were building that 3x3 model, and by the time you got to your 7th level, you had already hit that leadership bonus, then you would have made $3 off of each one of these contracts, 3%, if you will, for $65,000, right? But you get an additional $5 because of this leader bonus. So you get another 109 grand on top of that. And again, that's just on the 7th level. Remember, this is an infinity bonus. So imagine what the 10th, 15th, 20th, 50th level look like. For those of you who are wondering what happens if I don't get 100 contracts on my first two levels that month. If you get 50 to 99, right? So you don't get the 100, but you get somewhere between 50 and 99, they'll give you a $2 bonus to infinity. And if you only get 20 to 49, they'll give you a $1 bonus to infinity. So it's pretty much impossible if you got a 100 front line to not get 20 new contracts in a month, right? And if you get anywhere in the 90s, nobody's going to miss a $5 infinity bonus because they're at 97. You will figure out a way to make sure you get those other free contracts, and that's what people do every single month. Final thing I'll show you, and then I'll stop sharing this, and I'll show you something else real briefly. Is we wanted to know what this looked like in the real world, like no more theoretical examples, just what this looked like in the real world. So we had a gentleman, he had been in a company in Cryptex for 3 years and 3 months at the time that he let us take this snapshot of his back office. And here's what he showed us. He showed us that he had $7.6 million in what they call profits locked. So let me just explain locked profits for a moment, right? You get a loan into the staking pool, and then Cryptex starts accruing profits every single day. Now, you can't just take those out, because if you took them out every day, it would never ever accrue enough value, right? You wouldn't have the compounding effect happening. It will never build up big enough to be able to pay the bank back and the insurance companies and give the bank their annual interest, et cetera. So you can't touch that until those profits, until it actually terminates at 2, 3, 5, or 7 years. So this profits locked, profits from staking is off of his own contracts. So at this point, he had 80 contracts. So far in his 3 years and 3 months, $4.7 million and counting. I say and counting because some of his contracts were 3 years, some of them were 5 years, some of them were 7 years. So this will continue to grow for 7 years. You know, when a contract actually does terminate, whatever amount is paid for that contract will move from here over to here. I'll show you that in a second. But while it's over here, it's going to grow every single day. Rewards referral staking are the profits he is earning on the back for the back end. So they're doing a real-time calculation for you, so you can see it every day, and you can see what type of profits you're going to be earning as your team contracts start to close out. But for him, he was up to about $2.8 million for his rewards referral staking for his team. And that was going to continue to grow again. He's got people at 3 year, 5 year, and 7 years on his team. So this numbers could get better. I mean, this number could easily go to 15, 20, $25 million from going from 3 years to 7 years very, very easily. However, what I was most interested in is the unlocked profits. Unlocked means you can withdraw instantly and put into your pocket. So over that 3 years and 3 months, he put $2.1 million into his pocket, with this plus maybe another 10 million still coming. That's an incredible run for 3 years of your life. It's an incredible run for 3 years of your life. So here's the deal, how it broke down for him. The rewards referral program was 584 grants. That's the 10 levels deep. So the 10 level, unilevel, 30% first level, all the way down to 3% on the 10th level. He made 584 grand, almost 585. But somewhere along his journey, he hit the leader program. He made over 900 grand there. Add that up, he made about $1.5 million between the regular rewards and then also the leader program. Remember, every single one of those dollars, it was paid instantly, and instantly he was able to withdraw that if he wanted it. So 1.5 million there. Then he had rewards referral staking. So what this means is that after the 3 years, some of his team contracts started to close out. So this is what he had earned so far on the back end of his team contracts, 289 grand that he had put into his pocket. And then he also had 4 of his own contracts also come to maturity within his 3 year, 3 month period. And he got 316,000 bucks for those contracts. So all in, 2.1 million in his pocket after 3 years, 3 months, which about $700,000 a year. That's not bad, right? That's good money if you can get it. But also, again, 7.6 million and counting. And this number is going to go to 20, 25 million, no question. If he doesn't do anything else, this number would still go to 20, 25 million as these 5 year contracts, 7 year contracts continue to grow for the next 2 to 4 years beyond this 3 year point. So that is the basics. Now, I'm going to stop sharing for 1 second on that. And then I'm going to just show you guys one final thing, and I'm going to shut up and let you ask questions. And this is just the one thing that I showed Mr. Jarman. Mr. Jarman, can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good stuff, man. So See if I can get that to go into a slideshow mode. Okay, cool. So again, this is just a reminder what you just saw. We don't have to do this again. You see what see what the amounts are: 22, 35, 471, 1.5. But what I wanted to show you was just a real test case. So the very first person that I told about Cryptex, woman I know, her name is Karen. She does day trading with crypto, and I was still reviewing Cryptex. I was looking at it. The way that it was presented to me is not the way that I presented it to you. The way it was presented to me was actually really bad, to be honest with you. But I told the person to send me everything they had, and I started looking through all this stuff, and I started finding out how the compensation plan worked and everything. Because they kind of presented it to me. It was like, "Hey man, just throw $100 in, and in 3 years you'll be real happy." Which I was like, "Yeah, but what does that do for me right now? How do I make money now?" They didn't tell me anything about this compensation plan or anything. So they sent me a bunch of stuff. In there, I found a PDF. I started studying the PDF. I started figuring out the comp plan. I started getting excited. So I sent it to Karen and I said, "Karen, do me a favor, evaluate this for me and tell me what you see. I'm not going to try to influence you. I just want to know what you see." She called me in an hour and she said, and I said, "What do you see?" She said, "I see that I want 80 contracts." I said, "No, that's great. But I promise you, I wasn't trying to trick you and do some sneaky recruit move. I haven't even signed up for Cryptex yet. I want to know what you see." She said, "Here's what I see. You need to get off the phone with me, sign up, send me your link, and let me get my 80 contracts because my 3-year clock is already ticking," and hung up on me because she's a very type A person. But I'm not stupid. I took the hint. I went, I signed up for Cryptex. I sent her my link. And within about 15 minutes, she had purchased 80 contracts and she got this exact mix of contracts. And I'm going to tell you why in a second. But she got 50 of the 3-year contracts, right? And again, she bought 3 of these packs where, there were no 2-year contracts at this time. So she bought 3 of these 36-month packs where she spent $3,000 to get, and she got these bonus contracts. She's got 45 contracts there, bought 5 individual 3-year contracts, so 50 total, 10 5-year and 27-year. And again, I'm going to remind you again with these payout, I've included the 2 years in here now. They did not exist when Karen got started, but I just want you guys to see, like, this is what it pays out: 22 grand for a 2-year, $330,000 if you get one of these packs. So you spend $1,000, 2 years from now, you get 330, 35 grand for the 3 years, 525,000 for the 3-year pack. So you're going to spend $1,000, get 525 grand in 3 years, and then 471 for the 5-year, 1.5 million for the 7 years, right? So she only had to pick from these options. So I showed you how she did it. So this was her thinking. It cost her $6,500 to get these 80 contracts. And she said, "Here's why I did it." She said, "Brian, 3-year contracts are going to pay me out 35 grand each. 35 times 50 is 1.75 million. So in 3 years, I'm going to get $1.75 million. So I can live very well. My husband and I can live very well on 1.75 million for 2 years. 2 years later, we'll get $4.7 million. She said, "Now we're already living great, but now 4.71 million 2 years later, now we can just have complete and total and utter retirement and, not, invest our money and not have to worry about money." And 2 years after that, when these 27-year contracts cash out, we'll get $30 million. So I will probably never touch one penny of that. That's going to be for my kids and grandkids. That's my generational wealth gift that I'm going to give to them. So they're going to remember grandmom and grandpop, basically, and we're done. And that was her plan. 1.75 million in 3 years, 4.7 million in 5 years, 30 million in 7 years. So that's why she did this. The reason why I'm showing you guys this is because you're like us, you're like myself, you're like Mr. Jarman, you are builders. I want to show you the other side of this. So I want to keep in mind again, though, this is one person who I told about Cryptex. Oddly enough, the very first person I told about Cryptex. And she's now set herself up to get about $36 million in 7 years. And this is if she never recruits a soul, never talks to anyone. This is what she's got set up for herself now over the next 7 years. So keep that in mind. When you start thinking about being able to earn this kind of money in anything you've ever done, it's normally you got to go build a big giant team. right? So this is if she never talked to someone. She has talked to a lot of people because she is a builder, but this is if she had never talked to anyone. Now, you remember the comp plan and how it works. So let me just show you what this meant for me. This is the kind of part that I broke down because I want you guys to think about this. So 6,500 bucks is what she spent. I earned 30%. That's 1950. So 15 minutes into my Cryptex endeavor, I made 1,950 bucks in 15 minutes, and it was instantly in my back office, and I was able to then go withdraw that. So that was that was pretty cool. Actually, I didn't withdraw it all because I did buy some more contracts with some of it, but I withdrew the rest. But again, just to show you how fast that worked, right? 1950 within 15 minutes. But here's the part that kind of got me. I earn, because she's frontline to me, 8% off of all of her contracts when they terminate. So when these contracts, these 53-year contracts terminate, she makes 1.75 million. I get 8%. That's 140 grand. In 2 years, when she gets her 4.7 million, I get 8%. That's 376 grand. And in 2 more years after that, when she gets her 30 million, I get 8%. That's 2.4 million. You add that all up, and it's about $2.9 million from one person who, in all transparency, I wasn't even trying to recruit. I was literally just trying to get her opinion to make sure I wasn't crazy and I saw what I thought I was seeing. She saw it. She was like, "You better get in right now." I followed, I got in, and she got 80 contracts, $2.9 million from that one person. Now, since then, as you might imagine, I've gone out and referred a lot more people, built a really big team, and going to continue to build a big team. You know, the goal is to get a little over 50,000 contracts or more by the end of the year. But where have you seen any opportunity where you can do this, where you can set yourself up like this off of potentially just one referral? And if you're being honest with yourself, and I ask people this, $2.9 million, right? Over 7 years, which means about $400,000 a year every year is what that would be. That would be 2.8 million if you did 400,000 a year every year over 7 years. How many 7-year runs have you had in your life where you did not average $400,000 a year? For most people, the answer is every 7-year run. Most people have not had that kind of average in their career. And again, I'm going to say this again. That's for one person. She is not the only person that I've referred who got 80 contracts. So those numbers are actually not, but this is what it is for just one person. I just want you guys to understand that. So with that said, Mr. Jarman, I am going to stop talking. And hopefully people have got some questions. That's enough information for us to have a conversation. Or if you have some direct questions, I'm all ears, man. I'm here for you.
Okay, let me do one thing. I'm allowed them to unmute. Because I did turn off the where they couldn't unmute themselves. Let's see. Yeah, when that last slide, Coach Brown was the one that got me. You could have skipped everything else and just showed that last slide because that right there. Hold on one second. Let me set it. All right. Hello.
That
Hmm.
last slide was the buildup, right? I mean, I
Yeah,
wanted to
definitely.
explain the compensation plan first, so it makes sense to everybody. But yeah, you're right. I mean, listen, when she signed up for those 80 contracts and I looked in my Cryptex back office and I saw that 1950, 15 minutes into the business, I was sold. But when I really sat down and got the mix of contracts that she got, and I started to try to figure out what that meant,
Hmm.
and then I saw those numbers, I was like, oh man, it's time. It's time. It's time to go hard. It's time to go hard because I've been in this industry a long time. I've done a lot of things. I've consulted for a lot of companies around the world. Products, services, crypto, non-crypto. Still haven't seen anything that where you can actually make that level of wealth, if you will, with just one person.
right. That's what
You know.
got me because I had when I first seen this, it was 2 years ago.
Hmm.
One of my partners shared it with me, but it didn't make sense because, like you said, the way he told me, it just didn't make sense to me. And then when you broke this thing down, I actually purchased a bundle of 50. I got the 10 contracts that give you the extra five. So I
Yep.
got 15 contracts. And they didn't have the 2 year, they only had the 3, 5, 7. So now I'm gonna go back to the 2 year. But I did unmute, allow everyone to unmute themselves now.
Good stuff.
I had the
Good stuff.
feature turned off. So if you want to ask any questions, you can unmute yourself.
I have a question. This is Susie.
Yes, it is.
Thank you
Here we go.
for giving us this information. Um,
Sure.
so, can you tell us how long you have been with it, and can you tell us like what's the worst that can happen? Because I'm sure you're aware that we've experienced a hard time now with the
Yeah.
former company.
Say no more.
Yes.
Say no more. So
Yeah.
yeah, I actually signed up for this company. I got my first membership. First, I say membership. My first contract was on May 6th. And so I heard about it in April. Before I actually decided to be a part of it, I did like exhaustive research. I wanted to talk to like the person who was recruiting me into it. Honestly, didn't have enough. Didn't wasn't great, good guy I have a lot of respect for, but he was new, and I kept searching upline until I found somebody maybe about 5 levels up from him who I started working pretty directly with because he had been involved for about I think 19 or 20 months at that time, and he did a lot of research. Like he does Bitcoin brokering for large Bitcoin transactions. So, $10 million or more, $10 million is small for him, but he had his whole team go and really research it, do like a forensic analysis of the blockchain, et cetera. And he shared all that information with me. I mean, I put him through the paces, but I told him, and not to be arrogant, but I told him I'm worth it. I said, man, I promise
Mhm.
you, if you spend this kind of time with me and I see it, I'll be your most productive leg. And
Mhm.
and he believed me, and we spent probably about a week,
Every question.
you know,
Mhm.
5, 6 hours a day for a week, going through everything. And once I kind of had all that information in detail, then I spent time building this presentation,
Mhm.
and then kind of signed up with my first contract when I sent it over to Karen, and she was kind of threatened me. Um, got my first contract, and we've been building ever since.
Mhm.
So getting one contract would be like paying $100
Yes.
and then for a 2 year period of time, but getting one person, if you're not interested in building a team,
Yep,
you could be one person that gets three contracts yourself.
that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
But you're not required to build a team.
You are not. In fact, and that you're not required to build a team. And just getting one contract, actually, if you are going to build a team, just getting one contract does qualify you for the entire 10 level pay on the front and the 20 level pay on the back by just getting one contract. Um, I think what happens with a lot of people is they sign up, and most people are signing up with my team now. They're coming in for I say it a 10 pack, but it's really a 15 pack, but they're paying for 10, so they come in for $1,000, and they're getting a 15 pack. But what starts to happen is as they start building, and they start getting more and more excited and seeing the excitement of people around them, it starts to occur to them of what they're going to feel like if they go 2 years, or well, now it's 2 years, right? But that's only recent. That's literally just a few weeks ago when they added that. Up until then, the shortest contract term was 3 years, and people started to think how they're going to feel if they go 3 years and they only have a couple of contracts.
Mhm.
When those contracts cash out, they'll be happy that they got that 35 grand or that 70 grand. They'll also be depressed that they could have gotten 77 or 78 more of them.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. And
Mhm.
you have to go through a wallet like Coinbase or Clever or something like that.
So it's a couple of options. You have to come into Cryptex with Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash. Those are the only two cryptocurrencies they accept right now. So people are using Coinbase. They're using, if you have Bitcoin sitting, like I have a blockchain.com wallet that I have Bitcoin in. Other people are using Cash App, you know,
Mhm.
to get Bitcoin. There's also an internal transfer mechanism. So when you deposit Bitcoin, there's a 3% deposit fee.
Mhm.
If you deposit Bitcoin Cash, there's a 1% deposit fee.
Okay.
But if you do internal transfers, it's, you know, literally I can transfer $1,000 from my account to your account. There is no fee. So what some people are doing is saying, hey, I got $1,000 in Venmo. I'll Venmo you $1,000. You transfer over $1,000 worth of Bitcoin to my back office with a push of a button. And then once the $1,000 in their back office, they can go buy, you know, whatever they want with it.
Okay.
Yep,
All right. Thank you so much.
you got it. Great questions. Anyone else?
Yes, I got a question. This is Kai. Great
Yes, sir.
information, man. Wanted to ask you something. So I was doing a little research here. Is there a website as well too? I think it's called Cryptex Finance. By any chance?
No. Okay, great. You know, I'm glad you asked that, Ty. That's a great question. So, the website is cryptex.to. Like the word like .to. T is in Tom, O is in Olive. That's the actual website. And I'm glad you asked about Cryptex Finance. So, Cryptex came out about 9 years ago. They hit the world by storm, gathered a lot of traffic, and at that time, one of the things that was very common is still kind of common today, but not as common as it was back then, which was if you have a brand online that is garnering a lot of traffic, create a similar website name to try to yank some of that traffic. So Cryptex Finance, Cryptex.net, Cryptex.com, Cryptex Exchange, which is a particularly bad actor. All of these Cryptexes popped up to try to basically siphon off this traffic, knowing that people would end up on their websites, you know, thinking that it was the Cryptex they heard about and get involved in their projects. Now, a couple things. Cryptex Exchange, particularly, and Cryptex Finance and some of these other ones are interesting, different levels of, you know, what I feel about them. But Cryptex Exchange, particularly, was a big time scam. You know, big time scam enough that the United States actually, when they were cracking down on like internet crime and all these kind of things, they formed a coalition with several other countries around the world, and they really started going after these like dark money websites. And Cryptex Exchange was one that they went after really heavy. They found the owner. They arrested him. He's in jail now. They shut down all the websites that were associated with it because they were doing all sorts of ransomware and all these things. So they seized all their stuff, shut down the websites, threw the owner in jail, etc. I say that because for some reason, when you go to like Chat GPT is a perfect example, right? It's AI. We all know what Chat GPT is. People think AI is flawless, but it's only as good as the input that it's getting in. Chat GPT cannot differentiate between like the 7 or 8 different Cryptex websites, right? So in its mind, Cryptex.to, exchange, finance, com, net, they're all it gives a report that blends them all together. So even though it says, even if you go in and say, tell me about cryptex.to, it'll bring back a whole report showing a couple of things from cryptex.to site. But then it starts talking about the exchange, and it starts talking about the fact the government shut all the sites down and that they've arrested the owner. Well, clearly, if they shut all the sites down, you couldn't go to cryptex.to, and you still can. So it's just, they're not the same company, but if you are looking for Cryptex's website, it's cryptex.to. The one thing I will say in addition to that is the worst part of dealing with a smart contract has always been, to me, is the like the websites and those things, because you have a smart contract that's been running for 9 years. They do have an Oracle network that outside of the smart contract that supports him, but I mean, they're not very fast on updating stuff. So like the website, as an example, if you go to cryptex.to, you'll see something that says the 3-year contracts are sold out. That's because maybe 2 years ago, you know, they used to give up to 43,200 for the 3-year contracts as well. The bank that was providing that decided they didn't want to fund that anymore. So they had to put sold out on the website, but then they got another bank that said we'll do them for 30,240, And that's so if you go in the back office, you see you can get 3-year contracts all day at 30,240 for the loan, but it's never been updated on the website. So people are constantly like, well, I wanted to get 3 years, but it says it's sold out on the website. I mean, that kind of stuff, man, is just kind of par for the course. The other thing is you get an incredible amount of data for every contract that you get. You can go look at all the details. You can see what the insurance cost is, what the annual interest is going to be for the bank, when these things, when they're going to be charged, when the contract actually was executed, when it terminates. You get all this detail, but because of all that live data feed, it makes the website slow. So I tell people, for a guy like me who's super impatient, I'll push a button 17 times because it doesn't open in 3 seconds. You got to learn a little bit of patience, but for the type of return that we're getting, I can learn to be patient.
Okay. And just to confirm, you saying that cryptex.to is the same information that you're putting out today?
Yes, cryptex.to is their website. Yes, sir.
Got you. Yeah, because I noticed that also on there too. Like if you do the 5 and 7 year contract, it was $43,200.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's the same. Oh, that's the same here that you presented today as well too.
Yeah, if you do 5 and 7 years, 43,200. But now if you do the 2 and 3 year, it's 30,240.
Gotcha. And then last question too. So, well, 2-part, right? So, there is no KYC for this, correct?
There is no KYC for this. That is correct.
Gotcha. And then, are we using a Dex app to get paid, or how does that work?
No, so they'll pay your fronting commissions, like from the 10 level, unilevel, and also from the leader, or they are available instantly into your back office. And when I say instantly, I mean if you sign me up right now, the moment I pay my $100 and I click pay and confirm, you'll see $30 sitting in your back office, right? You can withdraw that whenever you want to. The withdrawal process works like this. That it is a 2FA system. So you basically will click withdraw. You'll tell how much you want to withdraw. And it will ask you what Bitcoin wallet do you want to send it to. You will actually paste in whatever your Bitcoin wallet is that you're sending it to, and then you will get an email from them. Now, the email is not controlled by the smart contract, so it's a manual. It's the Oracle network has to ask somebody from there has to send it to you. It could take you a couple of days to get that. Check your spam because mine's always comes in spam for some reason, and it basically just says. They don't have your name, Ty, but they would say regarding this particular wallet, we received a request for XYZ amount of money. If you made this request, please respond yes to this email. If not, respond no. And if we receive no response for you within 24 to 36 hours, we will simply return the money back to your back office. They do that because they need to make sure. I mean, honestly, obviously, if somebody gained access to your back office, they're sending potentially hundreds of thousands and sometimes millions of dollars, as you saw on the blockchain. They want to make sure that you did make the request before they send $1 million off to somebody else's wallet who hacked your account. The email is the verifier because they don't lock you in to a wallet when you first sign up. If they did, and 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 7 years from now, you lost access to that wallet and they were still just sending the commissions to that wallet immediately. The moment you lose your key, your private keys, or whatever your access is to that wallet, you're basically forfeiting every dime that you could make from Cryptex because that wallet is locked in. So you can put any wallet in you want to whenever you do a withdrawal, but then the verification on the other side is to make sure the email, your email, they're going to send you an email just to verify.
Understood. I actually have one more question.
Yes, sir.
So, out of curiosity, right? Let's say I do 3 years, or whatever. I get like 30 contracts. That pays me like $1.5 million. What's the best way that you're aware of to get your money, I guess, in USD, considering that you're going to be paid in Bitcoin, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So, are we still recording this? I think we are. I'll answer that
We are
question.
recording. We are recording. Hold on.
Yeah, good. I'll answer the question when we stop the record.